Hello, I hope I'm coming through. Hello, I hope I'm coming through. Oh, I am now. Got to turn it down. Sorry. Sorry about that. I was a couple minutes late. I got carried away there. Oh, that's about 5 minutes late. Got carried away there and yakking in the chat in the background. Although it all comes up to the front ground, doesn't it? And then my microphone wasn't working for a minute. Although it probably didn't show up on that end. On this end, I thought I had it turned off. So anyway, so Phil, you're leaving, or maybe he's already gone. Yeah, he and I worked in Nashville, Chris. He was, and then when I came up to the Knoxville area to go back to school and finish my degrees, uh, he took a job up here. Well, he went to work for another company for a couple of years. Then he came up here in '95 and got a job in the um, oh, I'm not sure what it was called. When Kimberly Clark had an engine division that was tied in with somebody, I think, and then they were involved. And then Arrows, oh, I can't remember anything tonight. Arrow, crap, out of when they bought them out, they had a place in New Jersey or Delaware. Arrow. God Almighty, I'm sorry, Phil, I cannot remember. And anyway, then and they were, or maybe they were based out of Canada, but they had a place up in New Jersey, and did a lot of overhauls and things on jets and turbines and whatnot. And that's what he did. That they didn't actually work on the airfield; they were actually based off the field, and that's all they did was airplane work or engine work. Excuse me, overhaul jets. Several different models over the years and APU units off airliners and things like that. They did some work on C-130 engines, I think, or at least APUs. But I think they worked on the main engines too. I think. Anyway, good evening. If anybody else is out there hot lurking in the background, and if you are, step forward and be recognized. Maybe not. We may be it, Chris. Unless Phil comes back after he talks to his sister. Keep my whistle wet. Carol usually comes in for my nighttime shows. I don't think she's going to be here. Car key. Tina might be here. I hope some friends from Canada are going to be in. And that would be Mike and his wife, Diana. And that's Monarch Moments there, who just stepped in the door from California. You're here taking a walk with the dog and Hannah. Well, isn't that lovely? Where do I rank out there? I didn't realize Hannah ranks out on top, but the dog too. Hey, oh shoot! I hear something. Double M. That's a good nickname for him, or them, or her. I'm not sure if that fits him or not. As in Garrett. Don't trip and fall if you're trying to text and walk. There, Garrett. Somewhere. Yeah, somewhere in there. Is it still hotter than blazes out in California tonight? I don't know if you Elena, aloha. Oh, you're still working. Well, I was getting ready to ask you that, and there's Dean. Welcome back, Dean. The turkey legislature is here. Well, I'm glad you're here, even just listening, Elena. It's always a pleasure to have you. Just knowing you're somewhere in the chat is comforting. I hate that you're working, but then again, it's not so late out there, is it? When you're 6 hours or so behind, it's still work day, still your work day out there. But what can you say? You live in paradise, so I don't feel bad for you. Not too bad anyway. Well, he's always talking some kind of nonsense, Elena. You should know that by now. But he's probably got to be on his best behavior. He's got his daughter with him. So I had to go get a tooth glued back on today. Hey, Kay, welcome. No, you're not late. You're never late. I'm early tonight. And there's Kelly from the Mickey Bunch. Oh, good evening, Miss Kelly. Always a pleasure. Elena, can't complain. Although we probably have some hurricane remnants coming out. Well, that's not good. I won't say much bad about that. But back here we probably call that poor mouthing. I mean, you live in Hawaii and you say, "Oh, it's just never." You know how it is. Never good out here. Just such a bad state of affairs. Clear blue water, clear blue skies. Hey, Mike Cabral, welcome in, my friend. I took your advice and came in 30 minutes early tonight. Only I was 5 minutes late. So I was only 25 minutes early. Okay, Dean. And Kelly, is Kelly still in? Did she come and bop in and bop out? Oh, she's cleaning, ninja watching while cleaning. Well, you're thinking about us, though. That's what counts. Mike Canada. Okay, where's your lovely bride, Mike Canada? You're welcome, Mike. It's probably a good idea anyway. It gets me in bed a little earlier tonight. Oh, you guys need two, huh? I didn't know you guys were having fires. I mean, I guess I should expect it when you've got lava on the ground. I know it's burning, lava. But I don't know if you do right now or not. Hey, I didn't get any. I need some. How about some heart? Well, I did get hearts. Never mind. I'll take that back. Boy, I was about to get in trouble there for saying something false. I did get hearts. And Elena got hibiscus. Well, that's what Mike. That's what Garrett's doing right now. He's out walking the dog with his daughter, or walking his daughter with the dog, or something. I'm not sure which. I didn't realize that, Elena. I'm so used to hearing drought, in the way. Hey, Michelle, welcome in. So used to hearing droughts in the western part of the mainland here that I didn't think about you guys being droughty. or that's something the old folks used to say, droughty or drothy. Depends on who you talk to. Well, I'm not going to wait too long tonight because I don't want to. If some might have to come and go and some might have to leave, but Garrett gave me an idea earlier tonight. I was going to take the night off, actually. Garrett gave me an idea, so I thought that, well, I don't know if he meant to or if he's putting subliminal messages out there for me to pick up on. Could be that. The subject is reading and books and educate in a different sort of way, education. But so I was going to talk a little bit about books. Some people read, some people don't, and I think more and more people don't. And I'm just kind of curious who in here reads or is not a. Oh, I know he is, Michelle. I know. Oh, you talking about Garrett, I hope. And I grew up reading. I think one of the best things I ever did was introduced to a library when I was in second or third grade in a little elementary school I grew up or went to, which was really tiny. It wasn't a one room schoolhouse, but it only had about 6 or 8 rooms. But we had this little tiny gymnasium, and on the end of the little tiny gymnasium was a little tiny stage, and they took the little tiny stage and put a library in there by the time I was in the 3rd grade, I guess. Oh, Mike, hate to hear that your bronchitis is acting up. I totally understand that. I have asthma myself, although it's not been acting up as bad. Then again, I haven't been out doing much either. Anyway, that's when I really learned to read and learned to appreciate the power of books and what kind of education. Hey, buddy. Carol's not here, but here's my old friend Teddy. Say hi, Teddy. Garrett's in here with his DOG, but don't worry, she can't get you. And we're talking about books tonight. You got any particular book you want to talk about? He likes Puss in Boots, but then he also says he likes Friskies for dinner. So I guess that's a different thing. Anyway, so I started reading then, and I was pretty much a pretty voracious reader most of my life. I've had fits and starts as I got older because I seemed to get busier, but I've always liked to read. I still read, and I do think that sometimes I look at and think about educational problems we have today, and some of the other issues we have might very well be from a lack of that. I mean, I think reading has taught me a lot of things about different cultures. The the conflicts and problems between races and between countries and between just people in general. And but then it's also opened my eyes to travel. And of course, I put my pirate flag up tonight because, what young man hasn't read a book like Treasure Island or some other pirate ship where he was and found himself, swashbuckling on the Spanish Main at some point in his life. Hi, Brenda Pruitt. We're talking about books and reading. Michelle said, I wish I had more time to relax and snuggle up and read more. Yeah, life tends to get in the way some. You gonna lay down now? All right, Teddy says it's time for a nap. He's wore plumb out. Yes, Michelle, I think it is important for kids to be read too. My mom, I have to give my parents some credit here. My mom started me out in some kind of a children's book club probably as soon as I showed interest in books. And then I got all kinds of books after that I really, an Audubon series of nature books, and not the whole set, but nearly the complete set of the Happy Hollister books, which I read were probably the first books I ever owned and read all the way through. And no, Garrett, it does not. The raiders in this case, those raiders aren't really true pirates. They're just hoodlums who have absconded with the flag and the symbol and tried to be pirates. I mean, everybody knows that pirates at least live by a code. I don't think the raiders have a code. What did I miss here? Kay said something about reading, and I missed the comment, and I apologize, Kay. I love to read. My mom said it was because she read me while she carried me. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's true. And I'm going to put a couple of Chris's comments in here. Michelle says, did it seem like the older you get, the more self-help books you end up reading instead of fun ones? Well, I don't know. I think I've found that everybody has their own way of doing this, but I think I get more out of I think I get more out of the books I enjoy than I do self-help books, but maybe I just don't put enough effort into the self-help books. I don't know. But that could be. In college, I always wished I could read like Johnny Five. I don't know if I understand that, Elena. You may have to explain that to me. Well, that's good, Brenda. Oh, do I need to shut my door so you can hear? Hang on a minute, guys. Sorry. I'm sorry for yelling, guys. I had to. When Brenda's on with me, she gets an echo if I don't shut the door. Michelle said her mom was a teacher. She loved to read. She could read a book every night. Now that's a problem I've had. I don't read fast. There are some books I can read fast. I mean, don't laugh, but if I wanted to pick up a truly relaxing book and just being a book, I might pick up a Louis L'Amour Western, and in that case, I could read that pretty quick, a night or two. But if it's a really I've read a lot of I've read a lot of historical narratives and history books and things like that. And when I read those, I tend to read them and then reread them as I go, and that takes me a while usually. Johnny Five from Short Circuit. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm not sure I've ever watched that whole movie, Elena. I didn't even think about that. Well, that might not be such a bad thing, but that also goes. It wasn't me that needed the help; it was Tim. Very funny, Brenda. Well, so thanks for joining us, Brenda. I'll be putting you in timeout, ma'am. After that, Mike says he prefers coloring books. I've got a library of books, and I've always thought books were special. To me, books are sacred, and they're important in my life. They've always been important. And I have, a row there, and 2 shelves full here, and about 10 shelves full over there. And I've been I tend to read. I probably read too many at a time. Like a friend of mine, I've been reading the book about the Knights Templar recently, for example, and along with starting to read the Leather Stocking Tales by James Fenimore Cooper, which I never finished in earlier life. And then somewhere along the way, I decided I needed to read I found this and thought, man, that's a cool sounding book. So I bought this book about Ernest Hemingway and the guns he collected over the years. And then I talked to a good friend of mine that I used to work with, and he suggested I get these two books. The Book of Eels, which is more about life, has a lot to do with philosophy and not just life, not just the eels themselves. And the Books of the Eastern Ice, which is by gentlemen who studied eagle owls on the east coast of Russia, basically along the Arctic Circle and along that ice shelf down through there. And then I've been known to dabble in something like this, the Cheyenne campfire stories. I have several of these on my bookshelf. I've got lots and lots of my bird books and my wildlife books and my study books, of course. And I'm probably one of the few people that has all their college books. Yeah, I've got 5 going right now, which may or may not be a good thing. And then if that doesn't count, I'm also listening to books right now too. So I've got a couple going that I'm listening to. But I find something I'm interested in. I have a bad habit of picking it up and starting to read it, and then I realize, I need to go back and finish that one. So I'll sort of swap them around. And that doesn't count my periodicals, the magazines. I used to get subscribe to 5 or 6 different magazines, but I don't. I think I'm down to. I might actually be down to 1 subscription right now. Books are special auctioning side. I don't explain, Mike. I'm missing something there. I might have missed something you said. Drives me crazy when I see people dog ear books. Yeah, I don't like. I was guilty of that when I was a kid. Kay, I have to admit, but it kind of makes me mad now when people do it too. I bet, Chris. You've probably got more airplane books than I do. I've got several books, but flying books and airplane books, but probably not as many as you do. Michelle says, "Are you listening to audio books? Those are great. I used to do that while walking my dog." Yeah, I do. We listen to books in the car all the time when we're traveling and when we're just riding around in the car for a while shopping. I have almost completed all the Pat McManus books that he wrote after I quit listening to his Strictly Outdoor series or reading actually. And he wrote a series of what I'd call humorous and backwoodsy detective stories about sheriff in Idaho. And that was the last things he wrote before he became too ill to continue, and then he unfortunately has since passed away. But so I'm on the last one of those he wrote. Chris saw a live stream on grizzlies catching salmon today. It's always amazed me to see a grizzly bear standing in the middle of a waterfall catching salmon that are about 3 feet long in his mouth. And they may be bigger than that because the grizzly's bigger than that. Let's see. Who else? Dean said, the only books I read nowadays are the ones I read on my streams. I have other books I need to read, though. Well, my girls don't read as much as I did. Jennifer might read some. They have read some. But as much as we tried to, we kind of tried to bring them up with books too, as much as we could. And I probably didn't read to them enough when they were little. I wasn't always here when they went to bed, and I was out gadabouting and working till midnight every night. So, and Chris, I forgot to add. I mean, I'm glad that brings me to mind. There could always be worse things. And it's funny too because my buddy Phil was in here. I'll go on to something else in a minute, but my friend Phil was in here earlier, and he's probably one of the best read people I've ever known. He and his mom both were voracious readers, and he still is. She's passed on, but um, as long as she could read, she did, and he reads books pretty much constantly and has a pretty good library himself. Although he has started giving his away, I haven't. Can't make myself turn mine loose now. And Brenda, no comments, please. What you doing? Mm-hmm. Why are you standing up here so big and proud? You want people to see how handsome you are tonight? Elena says she's jealous of that grizzly. Yeah, and Kay, Elena, they would probably be full of salmon going upriver to spawn. That's when they're being caught. So, sound like I said racist raiders? No, I did not say racist raiders. I don't know what I said now. That's been you're too far behind, Garrett. But I was interested in what folks here read and if they read, and because I think a lot of people are missing out. We live in a soundbite society. We get our news in just little minute pieces, and then we get stories and just minutes, and we read. I can't blame it on Reader's Digest anymore because the stories in Reader's Digest were longer than the ones we get off. Most people get off the internet, but the Reader's Digest was written to be stories that people could read in just a few minutes, so they could move on to other things or read in the bathroom. I've heard about if that part was true or not. Maybe it was. Who knows? Oh, there's a really famous set of falls that they take pictures at all the time, and I can't remember if that's if it's Mackenzie or what that river is. Oh, I can't remember. Maybe it'll pop in my head in a minute. Michelle says, Michelle's talking to Chris. Yeah, Chris, we like to see you back in chat. All of us would. But anyway, to carry on, and I do think people miss out on a lot of different opinions. When I went back to school, in my mid 30s, and I was 40. Well, I was 40 when I graduated my undergraduate degree, and 42 going on 43 when I got my master's. And I had to go back and almost start brand new. So I had a lot of freshman level classes because of the things I hadn't taken when I went to school the first time around, got my MP license. That was mainly for, I wasn't doing that kind of credits. And so I got to take a lot of classes with freshmen. And that was one of the things that amazed me about a lot of freshmen and discussions I had with some that were decent discussions because they didn't read. Most of them hated to read. They couldn't stand to have reading assignments, at home, at night, homework, whatever you want to call it. And I spent a lot of my time in the library doing homework and studying and reading books. I was able to read a bunch of books that I couldn't find at home or hadn't been able to find in years in my bookstores and used bookstores and things. I was able to read in the University of Tennessee library because they were pretty well stocked. I found books, and what amazed me, it probably shouldn't have, but I found books that hadn't been checked out since the university library had quit using computer punch cards, and they hadn't used those things since like the 70s or at least mid 80s. And I would find a book that I was really interested in on a shelf somewhere in the dusty corner of the library, and I'd open it up and there'd be the computer card in the back of it. I mean, I don't know how they do it now, but by the time I was there, they just scanned the barcode and stamped your due date or whatever in the book, and that's all they did. They didn't take a card out and put it in the file or all that stuff I grew up with. So I figured out pretty quick that there was a lot of stuff there that wasn't being read. I was talking earlier and with someone, and we were discussing the fact that I wonder how many people even notice that really know what's going on with the changes they're doing, like at Disney with Splash Mountain, and wanting to change it over to the Princess and the Frog. Is that right? Is that the title? Tatiana, or anyway, you know who I'm talking about. And why they might be wanting to change it. Well, most people I know anymore never saw the Song of the South in the first place, which was the movie that Disney did that, Splash Mountain's kind of based on. Hey, Tina, you're in the hospital. Oh, hubby's in the hospital. Oh, no, Tina, what's going on? Time out for a minute. I hope it's not too serious. Thanks for showing. Hello, Diana G. Well, I have a question, Diana. Mike said he made you go out and walk the dogs and get out and do chores. That's why you weren't in earlier this evening. Is that true? And if it's not, then you can hit him for all of us later. I just want to make sure you were aware he was telling tales. Not that I'm not trying to be a friend, Mike. You understand. Anyway, we were talking about that and how a lot of people probably don't even know why they're changing it, or why there might be some pressure to change it. And, they don't show that movie anymore. For the most part, I guess valid reasons. I mean, there certainly were things that might be construed as racist, but if you went back and read the books, and maybe this is easy for me to say because I'm a rural Southern white male, I don't know, but I read the Uncle Remus books, which were written by Joel Chandler Harris, and they didn't seem that way to me. And Uncle Remus was a to me, the books came across as he was like the sage storyteller who was teaching these boys, and one of which was probably a property owner, probably a well-to-do young white lad who was being raised, different at that part of the South. But other than that, he was teaching them stories with morals, and even though he spoke in a strong Southern black dialect, they didn't really seem racist to me. And I've gone back and looked at them since then, and I still don't think they were, but I can see how they might be taken that way. But my point is, most people don't even know what those books are. They've never seen those books. They don't know who Joel Chandler Harris was. They don't know the stories he wrote about. And I don't know how many of you remember this, and maybe only a couple of us in here, Teen, I'm not going to mention who else besides me, might be old enough, but when Walt Disney released Song of the South, as he did with so many of his movies and opening of parks, he did a Disneyland show on his Sunday night show about Joel Chandler Harris, and he talked about his life, where he came from, how he grew up, and his writing of Uncle Remus. And most people haven't seen that either, so they don't know where that part of the story came from. So when I first went back to college, one of the things I found one day, I decided to try to look up those books. And he actually wrote several books, and they were all mostly about animals and people and interactions thereof, and just the things they did and the funny stories they told about them. And I found it quite both enlightening, honestly, I thought, and a different side of Southern culture. And also, oh boy, I'm old. and I told Tina to time out, I was going to find out how her husband was doing, and now I realize I've talked right over her. We don't know getting tests. Hope it's not serious. Well, we hope it's not serious either, Tina. And we'll certainly be thinking about you. I hope he's okay, and I hope he gets home soon. I know probably the worst part about it is for him anyways, he's in the hospital. Never my favorite place to be. Y'all too, Diana, and I'll tell you what you might find. I found the books hard to read, and I'm Southern at first, but then once I picked up on the dialect and the lingo and then it went, then it was just natural. And I think a lot of people should be reading some of those stories before they condemn. Everybody, I'm not trying to start a fight here, but a lot of people have been upset about Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn and those stories by Mark Twain as being racist and or leaning that way. And I think if you really read the books and pay attention to it, it's more like I always came across reading those books as, yes, those things were talked about or alluded to, but what he was really trying to teach was that shouldn't matter. The whole story of Huckleberry Finn was not just Huck running away and doing what he did as a young kid on the Mississippi River, but it was also understanding that Jim should be free and that he was a runaway slave, and just because he heard other people tell him that was wrong and illegal, it shouldn't be. And so there was lessons there, and they were good lessons, not just white is right and don't ask any questions about it. Anyway, that's my opinion, and that and a couple of bucks will probably get a small coffee at Starbucks these days. But yeah, Diana, you should pick that. I can give you titles. I can give you his name, the author's name, and I got to make sure I'm not saying it backwards. It could be Joel Harris Chandler, but I'm pretty sure it's Joel Chandler Harris. And he wrote, I've got a couple of his books. I know I've got the Uncle Remus Tales, and I think I don't know if I've got two of his books, but I found several in the library, so I read as many as I could find because I just wanted to read them. I wanted to get more knowledge. Mike says you can't fart in the wrong direction anymore without somebody taking offense. Well, Mike, there could be a reason for that, but that's another subject altogether. And what was Tina saying here? I hope not either, Tina. If he is, hopefully they caught it in time, and maybe that won't be as big a deal as it used to be. Yeah, you're right, Mike. I guess I have to ask if it's that way up there, up in your part of the woods too, or Canada's that. Here's something that drives me nuts too about that is I hear people complain all the time about they hate being PC or politically correct. And I'm not sure what that means anymore, because there are some things being PC drives me nuts too, but there's some things that need to be corrected. And there's some ways that we talk and treat each other that I think need to be fixed. And if that's politically correct, then so be it. I guess I try to be politically correct, but there are other things that we suddenly have to be PC about that don't always make sense to me. And I do honestly believe sometimes it's because the people that are discussing it and are having those problems haven't read enough about their history to know that we've been working on some of those things for quite some time now. Doesn't mean we shouldn't have already had them fixed, but we have been working on them. Yeah, I agree, Chris. I mean, that you can't there are some there are probably writings out there that shouldn't be at the ready disposal for anybody, but and I'm not a book burner by any means, but I have to admit, I guess I am somebody who believes you should be allowed to read books, and if you don't read books or if you don't understand both sides of the story, you'll never understand both sides of that story. Is that really true, Mike? And I ask that seriously because I hear that a lot, and I know some people joke about Canadians always saying sorry. Um, and I've often wondered if Canadians really felt that way. Now, I've only met a few, and most of them were hell raising hard drinkers and worked on airplanes. So I kind of expect, hi, buddy, what are you reaching for? What's the deal? What's the deal? Come here. Oh, not sure what's going on with this guy tonight. He's wanting something. So I'll just try to hold him for a minute. Dinah says you can't paint Pocahontas on the kindness rock. Oh, wait a minute. I've lost that. Where'd that go? You can't paint Pocahontas on a kindness rock in Canada because it's racist. Gotcha. Well, I was messing with the electrical outside and I'm still alive. Well, good, Garrett. I'm glad you are. Did you happen to think to pick up a book on electricity? Kay said, I don't think we should ban any books. If you don't want to read them, then don't. Every book can teach us something, no matter how trivial it might be. And I think you're right, Kay. I think you're on something there because I think a lot of books, no matter what the subject is, can teach you a lot. It's like the old saying about, I don't know if this was in The Art of War or Garrett, maybe you've read, but it's about the old proverb or saying about, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And there was another saying that I used to know, something to the effect of, if you don't understand your enemy, you won't know how to guard against them or protect yourself from him. So my voice would have been the last thing you heard. You talking to me, Garrett? If that's so, then you would have died happy. Yeah, I lost my thought. Oh, so if you don't know what happened, if you don't know both sides of the story, it's very hard to speak against it or even bring out the better points of your philosophy if you don't know the other guys. I mean, I've never read it, but there's part of me that would like to read or have considered reading Mein Kampf. And I think Hitler was a low down, rotten bastard that never should have been on the face of the earth when you get right down to it. But I'd like to read his book sometime and try to figure out what the heck he was thinking about. I mean, I'd like to at least try to understand. I thought it was a running joke about Canadians saying sorry. Yeah, that's why I asked, Chris. That's why I wanted to ask them about it because I did too, or I wasn't sure. Hey, and now somebody's being naughty because he's not getting his way apparently. Cut that out. He spilled my salt shaker and he knocked over my black pepper box. And Dinah says, 100% Kay, there's a lesson in everything, and I think we should read them too or with our kids to discuss the lessons. Yeah, Diana, I would probably not disagree with that either. And hey, John, welcome. Surf Bums here. Hang on just a minute, guys. I got to beat my cat or see what he's doing. Well, he knocked a couple of parts I had laying here off the tray. Fortunately, I had put a lid on it, so good for me. And he did knock my salt shaker off, so if he spilt salt on the floor, he didn't throw any over his shoulder. So it'll be his bad luck, not mine. Hey, Tina, welcome in. Good to see you. We're talking about books. Well, at least I think we are. The subject is kind of waffling up and down about books and other things, but yeah, that's pretty much what we're going with. Jello, Diana says to T. Marie. Somewhere I saw that. Yeah, Jello. That's a Canadian way of saying hello, Tina, in case you don't know, Marie. How's John tonight? Has fishing been any good this week? And there's the Mickey Bunch back in, and I can't see her comment because I've got the screen scrolled down wrong, or too far up. Maybe she's just saying hi. Brenda says, hi, everyone. Here, just here Ninja watching, listening while she's cleaning. And Brenda says, I've never figured out what all Hitler had to say that made that book so thick. Well, that's probably a good. I'm pretty sure he repeated himself a lot. He probably had to convince himself too. Diana says she can't spell today. Ah, sure you can. I think Jello's just a Canadian way of greeting people. Well, this is. I'm going to jump ship and chase a squirrel real quick, but Diana, this is a question for Diana and Mike Cabral. But do you guys ever the Murdoch Mystery Show up in Canada? Because it's one of mine and Brenda's favorite TV shows. We've been watching it for years. That was just a brief word from my sponsor. Anyway, that was what I thought about talking about. I mean, when I think about that sort of topic, it brings up a lot of things for me. And I can't ever say it all like I want to. Maybe I should have had a drink before I did. That usually helps loosen me up a little bit. One of my heroes in American history, George Rogers Clark, used to refer to that as a rum buzz, but that's when he did his best writing. And boy, he wrote some amazing letters to Continental Congress and Thomas Jefferson and other people who never repaid him for all he spent and suffered during the Revolutionary War. But that's another topic, isn't it? Because I've read books about it. Well, let's talk about that, Michelle. Is that something you guys have, you see a lot out your way? Because that's something that's, I don't know if I can say has caught on back here, but they have a little bit. Did I mute? No, I'm still got, I don't know. Can anybody else hear me? Brenda, can you hear me? No sound is good. All right, Tina, it might be on your end. I had muted it for a moment, but I turned it back on. The first one of those, Michelle, the first one of those I ever saw was in the middle of a backcountry road that I used to run around the lake when I was working out in the sticks. And one day I was driving down this creek bottom along a really twisty narrow road, barely wide as my truck. And I saw something setting off the side of the road at a little pull off. And I screeched on the brakes and turned around and went back and looked. And sure enough, it was one of those little libraries, and it had a little list of the rules, I guess, about taking out books and reading them and putting books back in. And it stayed there that summer. And then the following year, I never did see it. So I don't know what happened, but I see a few around Knoxville, and I see them for sale. The unit, the little wooden box looks like a house. I see those for sale on like Amazon and places and at flea markets. But so what's your thought on that? Oh, that's interesting, Michelle. Now that I have not seen. Kate says the only little free library she knows of is at the hospital here, but I haven't been out and about as much as of late. Well, we don't get out near enough either. Okay, Tina says I'm the idiot who attached the Bluetooth to the computer and lost the sound. Sorry. That's okay, Tina. If you don't think I've not done that 10 times and tried to figure it out, you would be wrong. They have some really cool ones. One was built like a phone booth, another like a whimsical fairy tale. We have them on every block, it seems. Really? Well, you live in California, and I know, don't take this the wrong way, but in that regard, you guys have always been ahead of most of the rest of us. At least that's what I was always told. It is a good point you bring up, learning about people with opposing views to try and understand people who are different, or perhaps learn how to be better with each other. Well, that's what that's what I've always thought. Once I'd read enough and was old enough and realized that I didn't know it all, and the only way I was ever going to get along with, really be able to get along with people was if I understood how some, that accepted and realized that we don't all think alike, but that doesn't make us all wrong. And I do think I owe a lot of that to reading. And I think I owe it to living around university towns and places where you run into a lot of different ethnic backgrounds of people. And we raised our kids in a married student housing facility to some degree. And I always thought it did them a lot more good to meet people from other countries and other places than it would have if we just lived in, a typical southern subdivision, for lack of a better word. But that's not entirely how it would be, but I think you know what I mean. We have 4 little libraries by our house. There's never anything good in them, though. Well, Diana, I've thought about going around and looking in some and just seeing what they have and maybe buy some paperbacks or something and put in them. Yes, Brenda says, I have books I need to donate to those libraries. As long as you stay out of my library, we'll be just fine. I read some auto-corrected text and they're too hilarious. Or Garrett says, or even to know how to maybe teach to avoid radical ideas that can start a harmful movement. Now, that could be too, Garrett. And of course, some people are going to tell you or are going to say, and I grew up with this kind of thinking, that if anytime you teach a kid something, they're going to take it all wrong and be bad, do something bad with it, which I don't agree with. I think the more you hide things from children and kids and try to avoid teaching them, the more likely they are to pick something up and use it the wrong way or assume the lesson's the wrong one. Like Garrett says, like my Verizon experience I mentioned to you, Tim. Yeah, I'm not sure what book to pick up and read about that, Garrett. I agree with you. I think you're absolutely correct, but I'm not sure where to start. Hi, buddy. You're back. You knew I wasn't going to beat you, didn't you? Mike says, I agree with you, Tim. The world's too small to just read about one place. It is, Mike. And not just one place, but one idea. Again, this might be controversial, but maybe not just one religion or one sacred book. I've always wanted to read more about. I picked up a Book of Mormon once, and I'm not knocking the Mormons. I picked up a Book of Mormon to read one time just so I understood more about what the whole religion was about. And I haven't read the whole book, but it did tell me a few things I didn't know. Well, it told me a lot of things I didn't know, but you know, that's not a bad question to ask, actually, Chris, because I don't know how it is in all libraries. The last time I was in a local library here, you still had to have a card. Even at the university, I had to have a card. And I can't just walk in there now and get a book without either buying a card because I'm not a student, or maybe get some kind of an alumni card that would allow me to go in there and use the loan system. But I think most do, but I don't know that they all do. I think there are probably ways online that you can do that without, um, that may not use a card, which is another thought too. A Kindle. Also read some Kindle books. Occasionally, I'll buy a cheap Kindle book just to have it. I still haven't decided if I like that or not, because I like to hold a book in my hand. But sometimes it's nice to buy a book for 99 cents and be able to have it. And in a way, I do have it forever. It's just digital. That's where I straddle that digital, uh, what's the term? Analog world, I guess. I love to hold books in my hand, but I also like to be able to pick up my telephone or take a Kindle with me and read somewhere. But there are ways to loan books within Kindle, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. And I know you can do things like, I believe it was called the Guggenheim Project a few years ago. And that was a project somebody started to try to get more and more books digitized so people could have access to them. And you could go on there literally and find lots and lots of books to read that you might never be able to find in a local library. Okay, let's back up here to what Tina said. Okay, I saw something else. That Garrett said that's an excuse not to teach kids and drink and do stupid. Well, it is, but that's what they use as the excuse. They're going to hear about it somehow. Teach them the facts instead of them hearing the opinions out in the world. Yeah, I had an interesting conversation once. I'll have to explain later. We have a card, but the checkout is cool because you can just scan scan the barcode on that, and then you can just does it all at once. That's pretty cool. And Tina says, but remind them that there's always a way to find out new facts, what's called research. We should always be willing to learn new stuff. When we shut down and quit learning, think we know it all, or just quit caring if we do. Hey, D, welcome in, Dave. The Adventures of D has arrived. That's one of my things I've been trying to teach kids and I work with forever is you're never too old to learn. Gutenberg. Hey, Mr. Phil has back then. Or has come back in, excuse me. And never stop learning. Hi, Philip. Welcome in, Dave. You having a good evening in Georgia? And Elena says, okay, I'm declaring my work day done for today. Been working long hours. I can chat more. Hey, good for Elena. She's declared she's off. Hail to the workers. Power to the workers. Michelle says she learned a lot in the library after school. There were all sorts of books there. Me too, Michelle. But I did that during school. I usually had to go to work or something after school, but I used to spend all my lunch times when I wasn't hanging out with Brenda somewhere sneaking around. I was in the library, study hall, study periods, that sort of thing. I was always in the library, and I worked real hard on reading the encyclopedias. I would sit and just go through an entire encyclopedia every day and try to pick up as much information as I could. So now I have this mind full of trivia, and some of it pays off, some of it doesn't. Probably a lot of it most people wouldn't want to hear. Now, on the other hand, my friend Philip, who's walked in, everybody say hi to Philip. He has a mind for numbers, and I've never known anybody in my life that could remember so much information about FAA, AD notes and service bulletins and things like that on jet engines. I mean, I'd be willing to bet that he can still spit part numbers out at us like nobody's business for turbine wheel numbers. Okay, Gutenberg project stuff is in common domain. That's what I thought, and I forgot the word common domain. But yes, Phil, I told you earlier, Phil is quite the avid reader. And Phil, I mean, would you just have any idea how many books you think you may have read in your life? While he thinks about that, which would probably take him a while to crunch that number because it's going to be huge. I have a book here I was going to show you. Another book, but a different kind of book. Yeah, here it is. I think Brenda got this for me. Yeah. Brenda got this for me years ago because of my love of books. And I was very diligent about writing down everything I read in it for a long time. But I got to go back. I'm one of those guys that can get frustrated when something seems overwhelming at times. And I was trying to figure out how to go back and put all the books I've ever read in here, and I just hadn't figured that out yet. But I did get a lot of new ones put in as I went along. So that was helpful. And I still want to go back in and add some more. I'm pretty sure I'm going to run out of book before I run out of titles to put in it. Hey, Amy, welcome in. AJC Magic TV. Amy is here. Mike Cabral said my employer threw me into a work seminar today. They never told me that I had to do this until the last minute because they knew that I wouldn't go to it at all. Mike, that's sneaky. That's when you need to suddenly have that was one advantage I had in my last career. I could always say I had to be out in the field that day because I had an appointment with somebody. Oh, can't do that today. I got to be up on the river. I got to meet the Fish and Wildlife Service or something, you know. Well, I understand that too. I just found encyclopedias to be educational in many ways, literally thousands. That's Phil's number. And I would certainly agree to that. I've probably read a couple thousand too, but I'd say I'm nowhere near what he's read. And he's passed several of his on to me many times, and maybe vice versa. Probably him more than I have, but I know we've shared books for years. And, you know, we both like to read. And Michelle or Kay says she has a. Let me catch up here, guys. I'm going to try to shut up a little bit and hear what you guys have to say. Where was I? I think my hubby would think it's a nightmare if he remembered the jet. If he remembered jet part numbers. Yeah, he. Now, what did he? Well, we can talk about that another day, Lane. But he's a mechanic too, isn't he, or wasn't he? In a military, I'm thinking, but that may all be getting lumped up in my brain. Phil and I both did all of our work is in the civilian air aviation world, but he has worked on some logbooks, at least military stuff. Yeah, Phil says my love for reading came from my mom, plus the fact that dad and little sister control the television and watch westerns all the time. I'm sorry about that, Phil. There are some good westerns out there, but I do understand the position. So he'd curl up with a good book. Yeah, I used to sneak down into the woods. Yeah, he's okay. I thought he was, Elena, but I wasn't positive. Sometimes I embarrass myself. I used to sneak off down in the woods and sit down under a tree and read books. It was one of my ways to get some reading time in. And I was one of those kids guilty of hiding under the covers and reading the book. Well, Kay, we used to talk. Some of my friends at work and we used to talk about that, how much we do use our phones anymore to keep up to date on some information. And you're right. I think sometimes it seems like a shame that that's where we get so much. I think you have to be careful where you get it from, and I think sometimes you have to take it from a grain of salt if you don't know the source. But I do think it's an excellent way to keep up to date on certain things. There's a lot of scientific magazines and wildlife society magazines or science magazines uh, that we used to use to keep up with some of our work that came from that came off. They were kept more up to date on from the internet than they were, usually on hardback. Mike says my employee also hit my work vehicle and took my keys so I wouldn't leave, and they padlocked my locker so I couldn't get my personal keys. What? What? I have to ask, Mike, was he accusing you of wrecking it, or was he just making sure you didn't leave without it getting taken care of? And Phil says most military APUs and airliner stuff in my case. Yeah, right. After Jet Center. Yeah, that's what he worked on mostly. Phil is a aviation logbook genius. Oh, you started out in encyclopedias too, Phil. I don't know if I remembered that or not. Oh, Tina wanted to know what the training was. And Kay said she grew up on John Wayne too, probably for very similar reasons to you, Phil. Be my guess. Oh, respecting the brand and the public. Oh, Mike, I've been in some of those classes. I think they called it something different, but I bet it was real close to the same thing. So anyway, that's just kind of a that's just the kind of a why I love book story of in an hour and a half. But there's so much more to it than that, and you can learn so much more from books than you can from any other place I know. And what's great about a book is you can sit down with it, just you and the book, and have a whole world of friends right there in your lap, and or at your fingertips, and you can take your time with it, and you can read it, and if you don't understand it, you can read it again. There were certain books, and when I was younger, that I used to read a lot, and my mom used to fuss at me for it. She didn't understand why I read. In some cases, now she didn't realize I read other things too, or maybe she did, but she thought I should read many, many books, and she might have been. She's probably right in some ways, and I probably should have read more, but she would recognize some of the books I read often. And I guess when you read them once a year or so, you pick up on things like that. But I finally found a way to kind of get back with her on it. I found a saying, and I always thought it was Ben Franklin, but I could be wrong about that. I've not been able to find it lately. But I read somewhere in a book one time that Ben Franklin or someone of his wisdom once said that it's better to read one book many times and learn something than to read many books, or one book many times and learn something, and as opposed to reading many books one time and learn nothing. So that's kind of how I've looked at it. So if I figure a book is good and I'm getting something out of it, whether it be good relaxation or knowledge, then If you read it more than once, there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, your sister got you hooked on Doc Savage? I didn't know that either. Tina says, yeah, they used to require that kind of stuff with us too. Yeah, you did, as I recall, Tina, you also did, like federal work. Tina says, this makes me miss book club. Well, I do too, Tina. I'm so sorry life got complicated and I dropped. No, it wasn't all your fault. We all did. And I think and it would take us all to put it back together. And I'm still ready to go. And we're gonna have an air show. Oh, cool. Which field is that going to be out of, Elena? Will that be out of? What's the main? Well, I don't know how many bases there are there now, but Hickam or one of those fields, are they still in operation? And Tina is also correct that life does get in the way, and it's gotten in my way a lot in the last couple of years. Lord knows. Oh, Charlie got you to reading Dune. That's interesting. And I hear you, it's true, but the guilt's still there for me. Don't let that. I tell you right now, if you think you should feel guilty for that, then we should slap you and send you to the room without dinner, because you should feel no more guilty about that, Tina, than any of the rest of us. We could have stepped up and picked up on it, and if I'd known then what I know now, I could have stepped up and done some of the shows more. I should have done that, and all of us could have. So don't let that eat at you. And maybe it's not, but I'm just saying you don't need to feel any guiltier about it than the rest of us should. And it can still be remedied. We can still pick up on that. Excuse me. We can get that going again here real soon. Maybe at the end of summer when people are really slowing down a little bit more. Michelle, they know I would leave. That's why they did. Yeah, Mike, I know exactly what you mean by that. Oh, I see. That's why they locked up your keys to keep you from leaving for the class. I've got you. Dick Castell's public. Oh, I used to love to listen to Dick Castell. Phil, you turned me on to Dick Castell. And you're being turned on to Blue Highways because of Dick Castell's what got me turned on to William Lee's Teat Moon, of which I'll be forever grateful. If any of you guys have never read Blue Highways, you should. I think you should anyway. Lee's Teat Moon has written some really good books. Yeah, I don't know. Carol's not in here. I can't remember. Phil, do you remember which was Dick Castell from when he was doing that on the radio? Was he at the University of Michigan or Michigan State? Do you recall? I know it was one or the other. That's a lot of inside jokes inside the workplace. That's why they locked up my stuff. It's an ongoing joke. Oh, okay. And I just remember him not him maybe saying it, but it seems like when they would go off the air, they would say brought to you by the University of Michigan Press or something like that. I don't remember. I'll have to dig into that sometime. But I know I enjoyed some of the books he read tremendously. And I'm sure I missed many, many more. I was still listening to him when I moved back up to Johnson City that summer and worked on that Tri-Pacer down at Decker Field along the river. They had him on in the afternoons there, like at lunch. Well, no, it was in the afternoons later. We had it on at lunch on PLN, and that's when we'd listen to it when we were at lunch at work. Some radio stations call it the radio reader. Yeah. What did PLN call it? Was it that, or did they call it something else? The course that they wanted me to take was because I had an incident out on the road. Incident out on the road while I was working. Some kid tried to steal my van, and I gave him two choices. We don't have to ask. You can someday in private, Mike. I'd love to know what the choices were, but if you feel like there could be any kind of retribution or otherwise, you don't have to say them in here tonight. And don't think they have Blue Angels at Hickman. Well, I wasn't sure, Elena. You're right. I get that. I do realize that was an Army base, but I wasn't sure how many. That's why I wanted to know, because I know there's multiple fields there. I don't know what they call the naval base, or again, is there more than one naval base? From the bookshelf for PLN. Okay, that's where also Wings of Eagles by Ken Follett. The story of how back then a little known businessman from Texas got some people to go into Iraq and get his employees back. That was another one I listened to Dick Estelle read. Oh, I love those mountains, Elena. Brenda and I watch. If we're watching a show about Hawaii, we always talk about the mountains. Goodbye, Mickey Mouse. I don't remember that one. I know, Elena, but I deserved it for that one. You're right. Okay. Blue Nose said something. He met the previous squadron a few years back at Oshkosh. That'd be cool. They're flying F-18s, Hornets now, aren't they, Chris? I saw them when they were flying A4 Skyhawk several times. That's been a few years back. That was in the 70s and maybe 80s. And they flew, I think they flew F4s at one time, but not for very long. A lot of people didn't think that made a very good. Yeah, Bryson's Appalachian Trail book was. Yeah, I do remember that one. I've never seen the Snowbirds either, Kay. Super Hornet. I thought they were flying some version of the Hornet. Oh, we're digressing a bit, but I saw the Angels. They did a big air show in Daytona Beach at Embry-Riddle when I was there around the 4th of July. That was the bicentennial year. Actually, it might have been an anniversary thing for Riddle back then. Anyway, they had the Blue Angels were there, I believe. It might have been the Thunderbirds that year. And the Marine Corps had a Harrier there. And we all thought the Harriers were really, really cool because of, everything they would do. And I felt so sorry for the pilot of the Harrier because he forgot to put his gear down and he settled down too low in hover mode and got it all the way down on its belly pan and rocked it around and got it back up and flew off to the far end of the runway and landed it. And so, everybody standing there couldn't see what kind of damage he did. Oh, cool, Phil. I didn't know that. Of course, that was before I knew you. Okay, Michelle, who are you saying no way to? See you next time, Mike. I know some of you got to get in bed for work tomorrow. Mike may have classes again tomorrow, so we wouldn't want him falling asleep in class. But one of the reasons I started, or another reason I started early tonight was I was going to shut down by 11 o'clock. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. So I want to thank everybody for their input tonight and for showing up and being here and talking. And oh, the Harrier thing. Yeah, right. It was kind of funny. I mean, we thought it was kind of funny. I'm sure he didn't, and I'm sure his commander didn't. But you know, Harriers were still fairly new back then. He just messed up. You know, they did all these neat things with it. You know, flying. I don't know if they called it hovering, but he was. You know, they did vertical takeoffs and stuff. Even though sometimes they would say the Harrier couldn't do it, it could do it. And he just brought it in and was going to do some turns and things near the ground to, you know, show off for the crowd, and he got it a little too low. Anyway, that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Again, I appreciate you all being here. Thanks to our friends from Canada. Chris, it's great to see you. It's been a while. Tell you what, I ask you to stay around. Don't stay around, but I'll send you a note tomorrow, and maybe we can talk. Maybe even call you or something. You never know if you're available. But let's do that instead of talking tonight, because I'm going to shut down. I need my feet are actually cold right now. I need to warm mine up a little bit. Oh, he saw them at Oshkosh. He saw the snowbirds at Oshkosh. Oh, that's cool. So anyway, for anybody who's interested, I will probably be here Saturday. Mark is back in town, but he won't be with us. He's going to be out hunting mushrooms Saturday. And back to watching Itchy Boots. See you, Phil. And which has nothing to do with that Broadway musical. That wasn't Itchy Boots, though, was it? What was the name of that movie? Or not movie, Broadway play. Okay, Chris. Anyway, folks, thanks again. Everybody have a great night and an even better tomorrow and a great weekend if I don't see you on Saturday. But otherwise, we'll be looking for you then, and I'll see you probably again next week. Good night.